Have you ever felt like you're the most boring person in the room? Like people feel awkward when they talk to you? It's a common sensation, particularly when we are in social situations or meeting new people. It can feel like there's this unspoken pressure to be fascinating, to keep others hooked on our every word. This feeling can be especially intense when you're interacting with girls or making new acquaintances. If you've ever felt this way, you're not alone. But don't worry, brother, I have some tips to help you become the most captivating person in any room, or at least not boring. Tip number 1, change the way you see yourself. Now you might be thinking, duh, easier said than done, right? But here's the thing. Your self-perception is the cornerstone of your interaction. It's the lens through which you view the world and how you fit into it. Think of it this way, if you're convinced that you're boring, that's the energy you're going to project. But if you believe you're interesting, well, that's a whole different story. Confidence isn't something you either have or you don't. It's a skill, and like any skill, it can be nurtured and developed. By the way, I made a video about how to become more confident. Consider watching it next. So where do you start? Start by acknowledging your strengths. We all have them. Maybe you're a wizard at chess, or a diamond in League of Legends. Maybe you're a history buff, or you're passionate about animes. Whatever it is, embrace it. Those are the things that make you unique, that make you, you. Next, practice positive affirmations. They might feel a little cringe at first, but trust me, they work. Start your day by telling yourself, I'm interesting, I'm confident, I have something to offer. Remember, if you believe you're interesting, others will too. Tip number 2, try something new every day. Now this might sound like an old cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. Embracing novelty is one of the most effective ways to become more interesting. When you're constantly learning and experiencing new things, you naturally have more to talk about. Imagine being at a social gathering and you're able to share your recent experience of learning how to play the guitar, or how you tried your hand at making sushi for the first time. Or maybe you've recently visited a new city and can share the fascinating history or culture you learned about. These stories not only make you more interesting, but they also create opportunities for connection. Perhaps someone else in the group also plays an instrument, loves sushi, or has a passion for traveling. Just like that, you've opened a door to a deeper conversation. But novelty isn't just about having cool stories to tell. It's also about personal growth. Every new experience or skill you acquire broadens your perspective, makes you more adaptable, and boosts your confidence. You're not just becoming more interesting to others, you're becoming a more well-rounded individual. So how can you embrace novelty in your everyday life? It doesn't have to be complicated or grand. You could start by reading a book on a topic you know nothing about. Try cooking a dish from a different cuisine, learn a few phrases in a new language, visit a museum or art gallery in your city that you've never been to, or even just take a different route to work or school. The possibilities are endless. Remember, it's not about the size of the action, but the willingness to step out of your comfort zone and try something different. As you continue to embrace novelty, you'll find that you're not just becoming more interesting, you're also becoming more interested in the world around you. And that's a quality that is truly captivating. Tip number 3, expand your circle of influence. Now let's talk about the power of diversity in social connections. It's a fact. The wider your social circle, the more opportunities you have to learn, grow, and be inspired. Sometimes it's all too easy to fall into a type. When we were in school and college, many of us seeked out a community of people just like us so we can brand ourselves. The problem comes when you become so identified with that brand and that community that it makes you predictable and boring. So expand your circles of influence outside the norm of what your group normally accepts. Think of it this way, every person you meet is like a new book filled with unique stories, perspectives, and experiences. And the more books you read, the more knowledgeable and interesting you become. So how do you meet new people and expand your circle? Well, step out of your comfort zone and try something new. Attend a social event that you wouldn't usually go to, or try a hobby that's completely out of your wheelhouse. You'll be surprised at the kind of people you can meet when you're open to new experiences. It's not just about meeting people, it's also about maintaining those connections. So be genuine, show interest in others, and make an effort to keep in touch. This is not about networking, it's about building meaningful relationships. And don't forget, expanding your circle isn't a one-time thing. It's a continuous process. So keep meeting new people, keep learning, and keep growing. The more diverse your circle, the more you'll have to share, and the more interesting you'll become. Tip number 4, learn to tell good stories. Now, storytelling is an art, but the beauty of it is that it's an art anyone can learn. It's one of the most powerful tools you can use in social settings. A good story can make people laugh, cry, or get excited. It can transport them to another world, or make them see their own world in a new light. So, how do you tell a good story? The first thing to remember is that a story is more than just a sequence of events. It's about the emotions, the colors, the sounds, the tastes, and the smells. It's about the human experience. Use vivid descriptions to make your story come alive. Paint a picture with your words. Instead of saying, "I went to the beach," say, "I felt the warm sand between my toes as I walked along the shoreline, the salty sea air filling my lungs." Create suspense in your stories. Keep your listeners on the edge of their seats, wondering what will happen next. You can do this by setting up a problem or a question at the beginning of your story and then gradually revealing the answer. For example, you might start a story by saying, "I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at the waves crashing against the rocks below, and I knew I had to jump." Inject humor into your stories whenever you can. Laughter is a universal language that brings people together. It puts them at ease and makes them more receptive to what you're saying. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian to do this. Just share funny or absurd situations you've found yourself in or humorous observations you've made. Remember, the key to good storytelling is authenticity. Be genuine. Be yourself. Share your experiences, your thoughts, your feelings. People are drawn to authenticity. They want to hear your stories, not someone else's. And finally, practice. Like any skill, storytelling gets better with practice. Tell stories to your friends, your family, even your pet. The more you practice, the better you'll get. Storytelling is such an important skill. I will make another video about it, so make sure to subscribe not to miss it. And finally, tip number 5, ask interesting questions. Now, this is where the magic happens. When we show genuine interest in others, it's like we're saying, "Hey, I see you, I value what you have to say." And that is a game changer. You see, people love talking about themselves. It's a spark that can light up a conversation, transform a mundane encounter into an unforgettable experience. So, how do you harness this power? By asking questions that go beyond the surface. Toss the "what do you do" aside and instead dive into the deep end. Ask about someone's passions, their dreams, their triumphs, and even their failures. Picture this. Instead of asking, "What do you do for a living?" you say, "What's something you've done that you're really proud of?" Or instead of "Where are you from?" try, "What's one place you've always dreamed of visiting and why?" These questions invite people to share their stories, their aspirations, their world with you. And believe me, there's nothing more interesting than getting a glimpse into someone else's universe. So be that person who's genuinely interested, who asks the questions that matter. Because when you do, you're not just making the conversation more engaging, you're making yourself more engaging. You're becoming someone memorable, someone captivating, someone interesting. When you show interest in others, they'll find you interesting in return. So there you have it, brother. 5 tips to become more interesting. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments below. These aren't just tips, they're tools to transform your social presence. Change your perspective, and you change your world. Embrace the new, broaden your circles, weave engaging tales, and be genuinely interested in others. Now go out there and be the most interesting person in the room.